it's not just the investment, it's understanding, wait a second, what does that actually do for me? How does it help me achieve my goals? How does it help me align to my vision of the future, the legacy I
Mhm.
want to leave behind, the change I want to see in the world?
Today, I had a great conversation with one of the top movers and shakers in fintech, Marla Sofer. Marla is the founder and CEO of Knomee, an online platform to help people discover their financial identity. But to understand why this is more than just a company to her, take a look at her background. Her resume lists some of the most prominent companies in the world, including BlackRock, Microsoft, JP Morgan, Carta, and Invesco. She's also worked with and been an advisor to multiple fintech startups. In fact, she's so highly regarded that she was named the 2020 Woman of Influence by Silicon Valley Business Journal. Her own fintech startup, Knomee, is a passion project for her. As you'll hear in the interview, she has a deep passion for helping people access the power of investing. They created a unique solution to a common problem that empowers investors. Marla is not hard to find. She's a frequent speaker and featured regularly in various media outlets. Her drive and passion are definitely inspirational. You're going to enjoy this. Welcome to my conversation with Marla Sofer.
I got to tell you, I am struggling right now, Matt, with video. And being a woman in my 40s, every time I look at a video, I'm like, oh, look at that. I wish I had done like more sunscreen as a child because I notice every single flaw and wrinkle. And I just feel like, oh gosh, video is just so vulnerable, but it's what people want and people react
It's
to
true.
and respond to. But it is really hard. And it requires more courage than writing, I feel. I've noticed in listening back at podcasts, you probably noticed this when you heard my podcast. I say actually all the time. And I used to say other filler words that would just irk me all the time. And for
Mhm.
now, for whatever reason, I say actually, and I've got to stop it. It is driving me up the wall.
Well, I didn't notice, but now I will. And that's
No, I won't say it one time, I hope.
I'm really interested in this first question I have for you here. So,
Great.
you've had a remarkable career so far. I mean, really, you just look at your resume; it's remarkable. You've been an investor in both public and private companies, and you've had more than more than a peek behind the investing curtain, so to speak, the banking curtain. But what's one thing that you would want investors to know that most people don't know about?
I think the thing that is the most critical, important thing to know, and the industry, the financial industry doesn't necessarily want you to know this, is that money is not the goal. It is a tool.
Hmm.
And I feel that our society and everything that we've got in our capitalist culture confuses us all the time that money is the goal. And when you achieve it, you're going to XYZ, whatever. But the farce is that even if you perceive it as a goal, maybe you hit the goal and then the goalpost moves back. You're
Mhm.
never going to reach that goal. It is a flawed mindset that we've embraced, especially in the US, that money is a goal. And I think in a lot of other countries, they're much better at recognizing no, 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 money is a tool. And money is something that could and should be controlled and managed and channeled by each individual in the way that is most meaningful to them. So I really wish that what people don't necessarily know and what investors should know is that knowing which investment is right for you, it requires self-discovery. It requires all of this familiarity with how are you going to activate the tool. And in order to
Mhm.
activate the tool, you have to know your goals, priorities, visions of the future. A lot of people outsource and they're seeking this goal, not realizing that they're missing the point. They're missing the entire point of what money is. So I think we're entering a new era, and that the financial industry has always been focused on selling products, selling,
Mhm.
pushing products. If I can get you to buy the product, great. But what tech has taught us, and the biggest tech companies out there in the world have educated that the beauty and power is in selling solutions, not products. And in order to deliver a solution, you have to know your customer. You have to know you. You have to know so much more about you in order to delight you, to personalize for you. How do I make money an expression of your unique identity if I don't even
Mhm.
know you? And how do I know how you interpret what good looks like? What does impact look like? What is your purpose and how do you define it? So these are the questions that I think people should ask themselves in order to transform money from goal to tool, and that give them the power and control back into their hands. And it's very aligned with what we're building at Nomi, so that that power is
Mhm.
unlimited.
That's spot on. And I love what you're saying about money not being a goal, but it should just be a tool. And can you imagine how different our society would be right now if we actually treated it like a tool and not the goal that so many use it for right now? But
Well,
I
I
think
think
that's
the
a
mental
great
health
point.
problem. Yeah, I think a lot
Mm.
of people just feel stress defined in all kinds of ways. And there's so many studies that over 90% of Americans feel money stress. It creates physical health issues, emotional health issues, relationship health issues, spiritual health issues. So money is the cause of many wrongs.
That actually leads really well into my next question for you is because when we first met, uh, you spoke about living with purpose. And it seemed to me that when we were talking, that this was something that you'd come to understand a little bit later in life. So, what made you consciously decide to pursue this life of purpose?
So I think there probably were a couple of triggers. There's maybe a little bit of a cliche involved, maybe a little bit of a midlife crisis. I always found my own personal outlets for purpose. I was involved in nonprofit boards. I have this history of working in nonprofit, as we discussed, and
Mm-hmm.
focusing on conflict resolution. But in my own journey through financial services, I had a hard time finding some sort of alignment between that purpose and the work I was doing. I put a tremendous amount of effort into it, and I was always a change agent. I was always building something and doing something net new in even in my somewhat restricted settings sometimes. But I kept saying over and over again how we were missing the mark with customers, and I proved to myself that I could get great jobs at top companies. I learned so much about how money operates. To your prior question, I went
Mm-hmm.
into the guts of the financial system and all of these different products and how they work. And I started embarking on an idea slowly over years. And then I began talking about the idea. And then my kids started growing up. And it was a point of time, maybe 3 years ago or so, and my daughter actually called me out and she said, "Hey, you've been talking about this thing for a long time. When are you going to do it?" And that stopped me in my tracks. And I
It's a
realized,
good
oh
kid.
no, oh no, I'm also providing an example. I'm creating a legacy. I am trying to be this model. And that was a huge part of my spark. I've got two kids. There's a lot of change I want to see in the world. I wanted to represent this truth that if I'm not taking responsibility for that change, who will? And
Mm-hmm.
they heard from me that I have this concept, I have an idea, and are pointing out my own hypocrisy. So, that was a huge part of my catalyst.
So, with that said, let's talk about Nomi because as I've mentioned, I've had a chance to dive in a little bit and get a sense of my own financial personality here. And I'm just fascinated by this tool that you're developing to help people understand who they are and what they need financially and what they're aspiring to really. So you created Nomi to solve a significant problem that many of us as retail investors have unwittingly faced. So help me understand the problem from your perspective and then the solution that you're creating with Nomi.
First of all, thank you for giving it a shot. I appreciate that. We're very grateful for anybody who takes that effort, goes onto our website and tries it. The problem is that people are inherently disconnected from their money. um, there's a lot of research right now around behavioral finance and the distrust in financial services. And I think it is very focused on the industry trying to sell more products, as I was saying before. How do I get somebody to buy more? And on the flip side, you have people who are not feeling that they're doing a good job of making their money work for them. This is especially true for people that are the most distrustful. of the financial services industry. And so
Hmm.
it's those that might have been ignored or not addressed directly, or even met with predatory behavior, as some people have been by the industry. So, like everyone, I think people want to find wealth accumulation, but they also want to achieve meaning and purpose. And there's
Hmm.
this big disconnect in how do I leverage my money as a tool to help me achieve that meaning and that purpose. And people are struggling to clearly articulate their goals and their values. They're not holding their providers accountable. So there's so many problems embedded in what I just shared. On the other side of it, you've got an industry that is incredibly profitable, that has multiple layers of complexity and jargon, and you have no idea even what fees are you paying or to whom, because
Right.
there are so many people that are taking a sliver on the back end of any product you buy. It's impossible for you to know those things. You might not
It's an
even know which
incredible
companies
misalignment
you
of
own.
incentives.
Absolutely. That's a huge piece of it, Matt. Spot on. It is a
Hmm.
misalignment of incentives. And a lot of that is more fodder and more reason for that distrust. If you think about how many people even understand what are the products they're in today, and how many providers care about whether their customers understand those products or not. And we've seen so many rises and falls of products that were just think of the 2008 financial crisis, think of crypto, think of
Hmm.
meme stocks. People buy something without understanding the implication of what it means to buy that product and what it's going to mean to them. So
Hmm.
advisors, and when I say advisors, I'm thinking both professional advisors, but also broadly, you have influencers on social media and they want you to do something. They want you to take an action. And they have an incentive. They have an incentive in getting you to take that action. They want you to do something that often will benefit them. Consumers have an interest in going beyond that. It's not just the investment, it's understanding, wait a second, what does that actually do for me? How does it help me achieve my goals? How does it help me align to my vision of the future, the legacy I
Hmm.
want to leave behind, the change I want to see in the world? And some planners do ask these questions, to be fair. Some very good, financial planners and advisors will ask, tell me
Absolutely.
a little bit about you, your vision of the future, what it is that you want to see in the world, your legacy and your goals, your values. They gather the information, but oftentimes, I would say almost every time, the client is not ready. They haven't actually done the homework to come into that conversation ready, and then they create it. It sits in a file. That file sits in another file somewhere in a financial advisor's system or office, and then it stales. And as a
Hmm.
human, you're always changing, evolving, and your goals, your values, your attitudes, your visions are always changing. Your life circumstances are always changing. People have more kids, they get divorced, they move, they face sickness, they have changes in their family dynamics, they have changes in their work dynamics. And I think that dynamic nature of what's happening in a human's condition can only be updated and managed effectively by the person themselves. And so that's really, I think, what Nomi is all about. And all of those
Hmm.
problems will be addressed when you flip the the um, the reins. Who's controlling where the data is gathering, and who decides what value am I getting in return for this data? And when it's the
Hmm.
user, we're changing the entire dynamic of the industry to say, no, I'm going to hold you accountable to helping me meet my needs and my goals in the way that I define them.
You've taken a very unique approach to this with Nomi. As I said, I've started. It's fun. It's like a game almost. And as it walks you through, it uses, I believe you said, behavioral psychology as a way of guiding those questions so that they really get to the heart of who the person is and what they're seeking. So, as I was doing it, I was kind of thinking, well, why hasn't something like this been the norm since we have this body of knowledge here? And what is preventing the industry from embracing this on a larger scale?
Two really good questions there. So, why isn't it the norm? Most products out there that are delivered to you, the software and the solutions that have created them are serving the provider. as their client. And the provider's objective, their incentive is to sell more product. There are very few products out there that actually look at the consumer. Oh, I said actually look at the consumer and their needs and their goals as their primary force that they want to serve their client. Um, there's a lot of examples out there in the world over the last decade of gamified applications that help you achieve a goal. And Nomi learned from a lot of them. If you think about wellness, this could be physical wellness and apps like Strava. It could be weight loss apps like Noom. It could be dating apps like Hinge, where you're building a profile to actually achieve a future. And I feel that Nomi has learned from those behavioral best practices and applied it into a space that hasn't actually focused on the needs of the consumer at the center because of the incentive model, because of the way that technology has made money. And we're really excited about flipping that around and suggesting that if we can get the consumer motivated to go through these games in a super familiar way, we're not teaching them anything new. We're taking learned behaviors, psychology backed practices, and applying it to behavioral finance. We're applying it to the exact type of data that we know that the industry is desperate for. And they're dying to deeply understand their users without knowing how to engage them effectively, how to talk to them in their language, and how to get them to take action. So that's what we're how we're applying the behavioral psychology. Even at the very minimal level, asking a question like, what are your goals, is a huge question. And so we've embedded the latest thinking from top psychologists. I have an advisor who teaches at Columbia and Kansas State and writes for Michael Kitces, if anyone's familiar with kitces.com. And she has been very much the psychological muse behind Nomi that helps us understand, wait, before you can ask someone their goals, you shepherd them on this journey to help them understand what brings them joy. What are the things that they want to extract and subtract from their lives? When they envision their future, how do I get them into that mindset so that when they're envisioning, they can actually articulate, what does that future look like? Where are they? Who are they with? What are they doing? Where are they living? What activities are they engaged in? And that's the data that we're trying to gather.
Yes, and you actually jumped right into where I was going with my own internal questioning. Now, as far as results, what have you seen and heard from folks who have been participating in Nomi and seeing that change in themselves?
In terms of results, a lot of people ask this question that you did. Why doesn't this exist yet? How come there hasn't been an app that has enabled me to just go through the self-discovery process? And I can't answer why it doesn't exist. I can tell you that there's a lot of apps out there that are creating your data. There's very, very few. There are some, but there's very few that are giving you control over it. So the
Right.
results have been, this is great. I didn't even ever ask myself these questions. I've never associated my investment portfolio with my life and my biggest goals and challenges are in life. And I feel like, wow, what a failure on the financial industry for uh, enabling this decoupling for so long. We have a tremendous amount of interest on the professional side. So Nomi is a marketplace. Individuals construct portfolios or profiles of themselves. We call them financial identities that they can then consensually share in return for personalized products. On the flip side, we have an industry. We're starting with financial services that subscribe to these profiles in order to personalize, in order to engage. What we've recognized in our results is that it is the easiest sale out there on the planet. Are you interested in buying verified customer data that is updated regular based off of changes actually happening in that customer's life so that you can give them more products and services and promotions? Of course they're going to buy it. It is a brainless type of an offer that will fly off the shelves. That is not Nomi's biggest challenge. Our biggest challenge is a paradigm shift. There has been a missing first step before you buy that financial product. And that first step is knowing if it's right for you. How do you know if it's right for you? It depends. What does it depend on? It depends on these 8 components that comprise your financial identity. You need to know about
Mm.
your risk, your goals, your attitudes, your history, your psychology, who you share money with, what your vision of the future is. When those things come together, then you can answer yes or no. Is that product right for you? And then you can take the next step and buy it. And so that paradigm shift is our biggest challenge, and it's what we're working through. And when people come in and try it, they do come out and they're delighted and say, "Wow, that was so interesting. That was actually fun. It was gamified. You taught me something. You gave me an insight that I didn't even know about myself, and you're giving me a lot more confidence in the action I'm going to take next."
Now, I'm curious, what what kind of change have you noticed in yourself in your approach to investing since you've been doing this?
It is a journey. What have I noticed in myself? A lot of things that I know that I have needed to change for a long time. I've held myself back and I've struggled. Part of maybe why I launched Nomi in the first place is I think particularly women, I know this is true of other underserved demographics as well, are not great at talking about their needs. And if you're not great at talking about your needs and expressing yourself clearly, then you're not going to get what you want. And so I've learned about
Mm-hmm.
myself that it's something that continue to try to improve upon. It's something that is critical to both the success of Nomi and also my success as a human. I've learned that this has been the hardest, biggest investment of my entire life. I've sacrificed everything. I have poured more energy and hours and money into building this business than anything I've ever done. And I feel for the first time in my life that my soul is alive. I'm doing something that is
Mm-hmm.
meaningful, it is purpose driven, it has a huge opportunity on the other end. We have found our niche in other communities that empower each other to be the change they wish to see in the world. And so it has been incredibly rewarding. I've learned about myself that I am much more resilient than I thought that I thought I was. I can take rejection thousands of times over now, and it's been great in thickening my skin and also getting me much more honed into what I really want to be doing here, when I'm on this planet, which has been
Mm-hmm.
good.
Now, I did want to ask you this, and I wanted to ask you about your nonprofit background because this is something we both share. And with your vast experience in the financial universe, I'd love to hear any lessons that you think that the financial world could take from the nonprofit space.
Yeah. So nonprofits do deliver solutions. They have to. And they adhere
Mm-hmm.
to metrics that matter. Nonprofits have to touch your heart. They're getting you to give of your money in return for meaning and impact and purpose. And that money is not going to go somewhere and grow. It's going to go somewhere and deliver on a promise that matters to you. And if they can't deliver on that solution and that promise, they die. They also center the needs of their donors more than anything else. So nonprofits are great at honing in on what matters to you, Matt, before you become a
Mm-hmm.
donor. How do I tap into your values and what's important to you so that you want to donate to this enterprise, whatever it is, this nonprofit that is doing whatever XYZ it does, whether it's community or education or whatever it is. They also sell investing, but it's a very different type of investment. There's way more similarity between nonprofit and financial industry than
Yes.
most people recognize. And I think there is a convergence that, especially the industry side, is totally unprepared for. And there's been a huge surge in the alignment of it's not just my donations, but I want my money and how it's invested to be a reflection of my identity. We've seen that in the last, call it 10 years, a huge change in alignment of, well, which store are you going to shop at? Where are you going to go on vacation? Where are you going to invest your money? I know there was I don't know who sent it to me. Was it you? Maybe somebody sent me a this article about these value based ETFs, and it was there's an ETF kind of tracking companies that traditional liberals invest in and traditional conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is just a resurgence where people definitely want their money aligned with what matters to them. They want to see that their finances are an expression of who they are, and they want that integrity. They want this authenticity in the way that their money goes beyond their voice and their physical body and what they can do. And so I think nonprofits have a lot to teach. They have much more experience in talking to people's values. And I personally believe that more financial industry, enterprises and companies and advisors should hire from the nonprofit space because
Mm-hmm.
they're so much better at it.
It's so funny. I wasn't even going that direction with the question at all. You took that in a brilliant way. And especially as we look at impact investing and ESG right now, we've got great ideas with very few metrics. And the nonprofit industry has already laid groundwork for a lot of that. And we'll see where that goes in the future. But what a terrific answer. But, well, do you have any parting words or any words of wisdom that you may want to share with folks who are seeking to invest with a little bit more purpose in their own lives?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that the most simple anecdote is make money a tool, not a goal. And your work is to really define, what is it a tool for? What is it that you really want your money to do for you? And then I'll just share from my own experience and what I've learned in my life is to have a little bit more faith, take a little bit of risk earlier, so that you can activate that tool. So you can put that tool to work in a way that is going to be most meaningful and give you the most reward down the line as you go through this journey called life. And I would also suggest go to Knomee.com and give it a try. Let me know what you think.
So we can find Knomee. Where can we find you?
On LinkedIn is the best. I'm very happy to connect with anyone, very happy to engage with anybody. We love building relationships with communities, especially. Happy to share a lot more about where we are in our metrics for investors and the types of communities we've had the best types of relationships with. But LinkedIn is best.
Marla, brilliant way to bring everything full circle there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Love what you're doing with Knomee and look forward to seeing your great success in the near future here.
Thank you, Matt. It's a delight.
Take care.